Namaste everyone. Myself Mr. Shailesh Shinde. I'm working as a assistant professor in Deccan College. Now I would like to present my research on this particular topic for as an assignment of UGC mmttc TTC seminar assignment. So good morning everyone. My topic is historical development of Namokar mantra with special reference to early Jain inscription and literature. So I am starting my presentation. Uh, so salutation formulas and auspicious invocation form an essential component of religious expressions in ancient India. They mark the beginning of ritual acts, literary composition, and the donative inscriptions, serving both symbolic and performative functions. In Jainism, the most prominent and universally accepted formula of salutation is Namokar Mantra, also known as the Panchanamaskar or Navkar Mantra. Unlike many Indic mantras that invokes deities, seek divine grace, or request material benefits, the Namokar mantra is directed exclusively towards perfected and perfectible human beings who embody the ethical and soteriological ideals of the Jain path. In normative Jain beliefs, the mantra is eternal, authorless, and universally valid across all Tirthankaras and cosmic cycles. Modern scholarship, however, has shown that such claims belong to a theological register and must be distinguished from historical reconstruction. Epigraphical and literary evidence clearly indicates that the form, language, and rituals understanding of the Namokar mantra underwent significant development between 2nd century BC and the early medieval period. So this is the Namokar mantra. Uh, the Pancha Namaskara or five homages occupies a central position within Jain religious life as the most authoritative and widely recited mantra, embodying both ritual efficacy and doctrinal meaning. Like other Indian religious traditions, Jainism attributes transformative power to sacred utterance, yet the five homages is distinctive in possessing a clear semantic structure consisting of five Prakrit salutations addressed to Panchaparameshtins, the Arihanta, Siddhas, Acharyas, Upadhyayas, and all sadhus of the world, followed by a metrical section proclaiming its power to destroy all evil and its status uh, as the foremost of auspicious formulas. Accepted by all Jain sects, the mantra nevertheless exhibits minor textual variation, which occasion sectarian debates in the late medieval Shwetambar tradition. While the Stanakvasis rejected the authority of its concluding verses, although traditionally regarded as the beginningless and authorless, epigraphical and textual evidence allows a partial historical reconstruction. The earlier inscriptions occurrence dating to the 1st century BC invokes only the Arihantas and Siddhas, while later sources attributes the expansion of five invocations to Pushpadanta in the early century CE. The mantra's pervasive ritual use from worship and the initiation to meditation is reinforced by narrative traditions emphasizing its extraordinary salvific and protective power even when imperfectly recorded. Medieval ritual and mystical literature further integrates the five homages into the Navapada or Siddhachakra framework, embedding it within a ninefold symbolic system central to esoteric practice, thereby underscoring its enduring role as a synthesis of Jain doctrine, ritual efficacy, and spiritual aspiration. The present study seeks to reconstruct this development by combining epigraphical data, textual history, linguistic analysis, and historiographical reflections. It argues that Namokar mantra originates as a brief benedictory formula centered on the Aryantas, gradually expanded to include Siddhas and the other ascetic authorities, and was eventually transformed into a mantra endowed with in autonomous ritual power. This transformation mirrors broader changes in Jain institutional organizations, doctrinal, doctrinal articulation, and religious practice. So, what is the historiography of Namokar mantra? Within Jain exegetical and ritual tradition, the Namokar mantra is consistently presented as a timeless and beginningless formula, which is called Anadi Apaurushe, believed to exist eternally across all cosmic cycles in the time of early Tirthankaras. Medieval works such as the Paryantara Aradhana Pataka, and later ritual manual elevate the mantra to the status of Parama mantra, repeatedly proclaiming it to be the very essence of the 12 angas and the most potent means of destruction of karmic impurity. This understanding is inseparable from the Jain conception of cyclical cosmology, in which doctrinal truths are not historically contingent but perpetually remanifest in identical form. While such claims are foundational to Jain religious self understanding and devotional practice, they function within a theological register and tend to obscure historical process of textual expansion, linguistic transformation, and ritual interpretation. By projecting the full developed medieval form of mantra back to the earliest period, traditionally narrative effectively flatten historical diversity and elide evidence for a gradual accretion and change visible in the inscription and early literature. Modern academic engagement with the Namokar mantra began in the late 19th and early 20th century through the pioneering work of Indologists such as Hermann Jacobi, George Buehler, and Walter Schubring. These scholars approach the mantra primarily through canonical and post-canonical textual sources, often within the framework of textual philology and comparative religion. While they recognize the centrality of the Namaskar formula within Jain practice, they largely accepted traditional Jain claims regarding its antiquity and fixity, paying relatively little attention to eternal textual stratification of epigraphical evidence. In this monumental work, Historical Grammar of Inscriptional Prakrut, Professor Mendare places particular emphasis on Prakrut vocabulary. He also examines the early forms of the Namokar Mangala within this study. The more critical and historical sensitive approach emerged in the mid 20th century, particularly through epigraphical studies conducted by the H.D. Sanglia and Shobna Gokhale. Their analysis of early Brahmi inscription from Western India, such as those from Pali and related sites, demonstrate that earliest medieval evidence preserves only abbreviated forms of the Namaskar, often limited to a single pada, which shifts mark a crucial methodological turning point, foregrounding inscriptions as independent historical witnesses and challenging assumptions derived solely from later literary traditions. Recent scholarship has further refined the historical understanding of the Namokar mantra, was explicitly distinguished between doctrinal ideals and historically verifiable developments. Scholars such as Paul Dundas, Peter Fibel, Johns Bronkhurst have emphasized the need of situate Jain ritual and textual practice within their specific historical, institutional, and linguistic context. Dundas in particularly has drawn attention to the relatively silence of early Shwetambar canonical text regarding the full fivefold formula, and has argued that the expansion of Panchanamaskar reflects later doctrinal and institutional consolidation rather than primordial completeness. Complementing these perspective, philological studies by Ernst Luhmann, William Bolle, and other illuminated the multiple linguistic layers embedded within Jain uh, Prakrit text, enabling more precise chronological differentiation between Ardhamagadi, Maharashtri, Shaurseni forms of the mantra. Shrikant Pradhan, Abhinav Kurkute, and Vivek Kale have identified a new inscription from Logadwadi that preserves an early version of the Namokar mantra. This inscription is chronologically close to the Pali inscription and exhibit striking paleographical and textual similarities within it. Taken together, these epigraphical, philological, and historiographical approaches provide the methodological foundation for the present study, allowing the allowing the Namukar mantra to be understood not as a static and timeless utterance, but as historically evolving religious formula shaped by the changing linguistic, institutional, and ritual circumstances. Early epigraphic evidence. The earliest datable evidence for the Namokar mantra comes from Jain inscriptions rather than from literary sources. These inscriptions distributed across western and eastern India consistently preserve short benedictory expressions. The Pali cave inscription, the Brahmi inscription from Pali is present day Maharashtra, is paleographically dated to the second or early first century BC. It opens with the phrases Namo Arhantanam, followed by the record of donation by the monk Bhadanta Idarakhita. The language is Prakrut influenced by Sanskrit, and opening salutation clearly function as a Mangalacharan. So this is the inscription. Namo Arhantanam Katunam Bhadanta Idarakhitena Lenam Karapitam Podhicha Sahakahi Sah. The exclusive salutation to the Arhantas indicates that at the stage reverence towards the enlightened jinas alone was considered sufficient from ritual auspiciousness. Second inscription is Logarwadi cave inscription. So this is the inscription. Recently discovered inscription at the Logarwadi caves further confirm the antiquity and regional spread of the Vanapada formula Namo Arhantanam, paleographically comparable to the Pali inscriptions. These records reinforce the conclusion that the earliest Namaskar expression was brief and functioned primarily as an auspicious invocation. Namo Arhantanam Bhayam Ta Idarakhitena Pudhi Path Doasana Veyika च कारापिता साहकाही सह गोसाले न कातोन. The third inscription is from Hatigrumpha and Kumargiri inscriptions. The Hatigrumpha inscription of King Kharaveda represent a significant development. Its opening formula Namo Arhantanam Namo Sapasiddhanam introduces a second category, the Siddhas. This suggests an emerging conceptual distinction between the omniscient being embodied in the world and the liberated soul beyond embodiment, Arhantas and Siddhas. Nevertheless, the formula remains limited to two padas, indicating that fivefold structure had not yet become standard. So, linguistic and semantic development of Arhanta. The term Arhat derives from Sanskrit root arha, meaning to be worthy or to deserve. In Vedic and early post Vedic literature, it denotes worthiness or fitness rather than fixed doctrinal category. In Ardhamagadi, this appearance as Araha with plural forms such as Araha, Arahanta. Literary expansion and linguistic evolution of Namokarmata. The transition the transition of the Jain Mangalacharana into the comprehensive fivefold recognized today was a product of significant scholarly and sectarian maturation during the early centuries of the Christian era. The old literary evidence of this complete quintuple invocation is found within the Jain scripture, the Shatkhandagam, where it serves as the foundational first sutra. Veersen's 9th century commentary, the Dhaulatika, credits the monk Pushpadanta with expanding the formula from its more ancient, simpler members into five distinct homages. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ariyantanam, Ariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, and Namo Loe Savvasapunam. This expansion was reportedly undertaken by Pushpadanta as a memorial act to honor the uninterrupted lineage of his holy predecessors. Parallel to the Digambar tradition, the Shwetambar tradition exhibit a gradual integration of mantra into a canonical and semi-canonical work. While the formula remained virtually unknown to many Shwetambar scripture, it eventually surfaced at the beginning of the Vyakhya Prajnapti, and furthermore Vasudev Hindi provide a significant early non-canonical record featuring the Namokkar as an introductory invocation. This is explicitly linked to its primary narrative text. Alongside this structural expansion, a profound linguistic and semantic evolution occurred, especially regarding the transition from Arhata to Arihanta, originally derived from the Sanskrit root Arha, meaning to be worthy or deserving. The term was traditionally used to denote a venerable or meritorious being. In early inscription, the Ardhamagdi text, the form Arahanta persisted, emphasizing those who deserve supreme excellence and expressive homage, which is called Puja Tishaya. However, as the mantra moved into Maharashtri and Shavarsini Prakrut dialects, the phonetic shifts to Arihanta. Arihanta facilitated a new theological interpretation, the destroyer of enemies, Hanta Arihanta, symbolizing the internal conquest of the eight destructive Ghati karmas and delusion of mind, which is called Moha. This shift fundamentally altered the mantra's focus from a title of worthiness to a metaphor for spiritual combat and victory over karmic bondage. The early Jain use the term retained this honorific sense, designating venerable beings worthy of respect. From early centuries of CE onward, the form Arihanta becomes increasingly prevalent in Jain textual and epigraphical sources, making an important shift in both linguistic use and doctrinal interpretation. This development enabled later exegetes to reinterpret the term as a compound meaning destroyer of enemies, with the enemies identifies as the eight Ghati karmas, such as understanding represents a secondary theological motivated semantic reinterpretation rather than the original meaning of the word. Significantly, the plural form of Aryanta is not attested in securely dated pre-Gupta inscriptions, indicating that its wider circulation likely postdates the earliest epigraphic evidence. Parallel to this semantic development, clear dialectical change are observable, particularly the phonological evolution from Namo to Namo and from Nama to Nama, reflecting a transition from Ardhamagdi to Maharashtri and Shaurseni Prakrit. These linguistic shifts functioning as valuable chronological markers aiding in stratification and dating of different textual epigraphical layers. The earliest literally attestation of full five-fold formulas occurs in Vyakya Pranapti, 3rd century CE. Here, all five categories of Panchaparameshti are explicitly named. This expansion reflects the growing institutional importance of Jain monastic hierarchy. Significantly, early canonical texts such as the Avashyak Sutra and Uttaradhyana do not include the later four-line Prashasti, indicating that the mantra had not yet acquired its full liturgical form. The Avashyak Nirukti marks a turning point. It introduces the four-line laudatory verse praising the mantra as the foremost of all auspicious statements. These additions transform the Namaskar from a simple salutation into self-referential, power-laden formula. Later works such as Vasudev Visheshavashyak Bhashya and the commentaries further elaborate these understandings, framing the mantra as a means of karmic purification. Both major Jain sects accept the Namokar mantra but preserve it in different linguistic forms. The Digambar tradition record it in Shaurseni Prakrit, most prominently in Shatkhandagam, while Shwetambar tradition preserve Maharashtri forms in exegetical literature. The placement of the mantra at the beginning of major Digambar doctrinal underscores its elevated status by the early medieval period. Originally, the Namaskar formula functioned as a general auspicious invocation. Over time, however, narrative and ritual texts increasingly attributed miraculous powers to its recitation. Medieval sources describe it is capable to ensuring favorable rebirth, averting misfortune, and even guaranteeing liberation. These shifts reflect broader changes in Jain religious practice, including the rise of ritualism, devotional storytelling, and influence of pan-Indic tantric idioms. The later addition of Om to the mantra in some context further illustrate this process of ritual amplification. So I am now concluding my paper. The historical development of Namakar mantra reveals a complex and layered process of both rather than the transmission of a fixed timeless formula. Early inscriptions demonstrate that the mantra began as a brief salutation to the Arhantas, later expanded to include Siddhas, and only gradually incorporated the full fivefold structure and the laudatory verses. Linguistic analysis shows how shifts in Prakrit uses and semantic reinterpretation reshape key terms such as Arhat, Arihanta. Textual history reveals how institutional and doctrinal development within Jain influenced the mantra's expansion and ritualization. By tracing this process, the present study not only clarifies the history of Namokar mantra but also contributes to a deeper understanding of Jain religious culture and historiographical grammars of inscriptional Prakrit. The mantra thus stands as both devotional centerpiece and historical witness to the dynamic evolution of Jain tradition. So, thank you very much.